name's Rex. She'll call me Captain.
What if I told you that the Republic was now under the control of the Dark Lord of the Sith?
The shroud of the dark side has fallen.
Call him Clovis. I'm heavy.
Begun. The Clone War has.
You're listening to The World Between Worlds, a Star Wars podcast where we're marathoning all of Star Wars in chronological order leading up to Episode 9. We just finished Season 5 of The Clone Wars and are on the very first arc of the final season of The Clone Wars.
We're in the endgame now.
This week, the clone troopers of the 501st are trapped in a web of lies and conspiracy that had been set in motion all those years ago. The machinations of the most evil characters in the Star Wars universe are beginning to become clear to us, the audience.
This is Season 6, Episode 1, The Unknown. This is Season 6, Episode 2, Conspiracy. This is Season 6, Episode 3, Fugitive. This is Season 6, Episode 4, Orders!
Actually knew the name of it.
Wow.
Nice.
I forgot all of them.
Because good soldiers follow orders.
Right.
That's right, Jessica. This is the Season 6 Clone Crisis arc of the Clone Wars. I'm Yates.
I'm Jordan. I'm Keats.
I'm Jessica.
Jessica, you had raised a very
Genius question.
genius question.
Brilliant point.
I think definitely a common question among Star Wars fans is
Common question.
which was what happened in Attack of the Clones again? It's been a while. This is our 35th episode, so we are a ways away from Attack of the Clones, and where some of the stuff that is revealed in this arc is seeded.
They are totally obedient, taking any order without question. We modified their genetic structure to make them less independent than the original host.
And who was the original host?
A bounty hunter called Jango Fett.
I think the reason no one understands what's going on in Attack of the Clones is because the whole movie, everyone's like, what's going on? What's going on? And then they explain what's going on, and they're still like, what's going on? What's going on? So you never attach to it.
George had a vision.
All right, I'm all ears.
That's it.
Were there any parts of this arc that sort of raised like red flags for you or caused you to scratch your head, or just like that where connections were made that you're like, oh, okay, that makes a lot of sense?
Last one, connections were made. But it was less about like why the Clone Wars is being fought to begin with and more about like how the clones become the stormtroopers.
Sure.
And I think that was like my real question. I liked getting those. I like those juicy answers.
Yes, we do get some juicy answers in this, which is great. I mean, for me, I remember being like, I must have been 6 or 7 years old when Attack of the Clones came out. And I remember, and I think I talked about this on that podcast episode, asking my parents questions like, what's going on? What's God? Also, what's going on in Star Wars right now? I had questions about who the clones were, how they became the stormtroopers, like what was the deal with everything, how were the Sith involved in this, and why so much subterfuge and smoke and mirrors. As a kid, it's really hard to follow. As adults, it's hard to follow.
What about teenager?
Teenager, still hard to follow,
Old man.
in my opinion.
George
definitely knows, probably. Maybe he doesn't. But in this arc, we do get answers. And there's also another arc that's coming up that also sort of continues this thread. So this is, as a kid, this is like a long game for me to get my answers. So I was very happy about this arc in this way. And it also just happens to be really good arc and a lot of fun.
When I first watched it, I really didn't want answers. I kind of like the mystery aspect of it. So I remember not liking it at first.
You mean when you watch when you watched it the first time? Like,
yeah.
Before the podcast?
Like years ago, yeah. Yeah, classic Jordan. I hate everything, and then I somehow end up liking it.
Well, well, I think one reason it works is we have a really strong main character.
My designation is Trooper 27-5555, sir. We call him Fives. I'm Heavy. This is Echo. Where's your sergeant? Dead, sir. We're all that's left. Looks like we got ourselves a batch of shinies, Commander. Shinies, sir? That's right. Your armor. It's shiny and new. Just like you.
Beyond Anakin and Obi-Wan and maybe Yoda, the clones are really the other main character. And here we have Fives, a character that we've tracked since season 1 of the Clone Wars, really step into his own and us to really root for him. I really liked him.
Yeah, I agree. I also had never seen that episode from season 1, Rookies, where Fives is introduced. And I mean, honestly, like from that episode to here, he was like a completely different character.
I mean, I felt that way even in the ARC Troopers arc and then Umbara. I mean, it was like the same deal. I always felt like he was changing a lot. But yeah, he looks a lot older and more grizzled. So the conspiracy itself, like I said, this is an arc that provides some answers, but you know, it also does ask a fair few questions. What's great is that Fives is asking all those questions with us. And Fives is a character that we know from the previous arcs. He's tenacious and he's individualistic, and he's the guy that's going to get those answers. So the big rising action in this very first episode of the arc is that Tup, one of the other clone characters, I'm not sure how far back he was introduced, but he was definitely in the Umbara arc as one of the main clones. Yeah.
Do you think that's short for Tupperware?
Like he's really good at like holding leftovers. I think he's a medic.
So he keeps his carrots and stuff in Tupperware.
His carrots?
Yeah, I thought.
What else do you put in Tupperware besides food?
Besides carrots.
No.
I on top, you got the carrots.
Of course, what else am I here for?
I'm a medic. Here, take a carrot.
You gotta sing on the battlefield.
We're all expendable, so all I got are these carrots.
You said Tup is...
Name's Tup.
He has a pre-established relationship with Fives, and I from what I remember, I'm not sure how much time they actually spent with each other, but they start out at the beginning of this arc like they are best buds. And, you know, it makes sense because a lot of people died, like, in the last arc. It makes sense that they're, like, closely bonded now, but...
They're on the 501st.
They're war buddies.
They're war buddies, but the rising action pushes Tup toward the edge, like we see that he is... like clearly incapacitated in some way, like he's going in and out of almost like a fugue state, and it ends with him killing a Jedi character.
Tup, can you hear me?
Yes, Captain.
What happened?
What do you mean?
Do you have any idea what you've done?
Good soldiers follow orders. Good soldiers follow orders. Good soldiers follow orders. Good soldiers follow orders. Good soldiers follow orders.
Jessica, what was your reaction to just like where that took the episode? Were you expecting it to go that way?
I come in with no expectations.
Well, that's good.
But
what was the reaction all the same?
Well, okay, let me talk about it in this way. So when he was saying like must follow orders, must kill Jedi, do you think that was like him being conflicted? Like on the one hand he was like saying like must kill Jedi, on the other hand he was like no, I have to follow orders? Or do you think that the orders that he was getting from this like little chip were to kill the Jedi?
That's a really good point. I think what we learn later in the arc like complicates that. I don't think the arc presents us with a clear answer.
Yeah.
But I definitely think it could be that he was like that there was like a genuine conflict. I mean, especially when he's like in his state again, he's like, I would never do that. Like that's not what I.
Do you think they get PTSD?
Yes.
Well, there's talk in this episode about like the dreams and like the nightmares that never end,
wow.
the mission that never ends.
The mission.
What is he saying?
Brother, what mission? You know the one. The mission. The one in our dreams that never ends. The one in our dreams. Oh, brother.
That's so sad.
Yeah, it was heartbreaking.
That felt really real, even though they don't really touch on it directly and call it like PTSD. It's like
It reminded me a lot of like when World War II troopers were like, or Vietnam troopers, I think, were coming home and they were just like having like crazy nightmares and people just didn't understand it. And it was like the first time like PTSD was like clinically recognized.
Yeah. Well, they had like different like names for every war. They had like a different like name for what like PTSD was. Then at that point, it was like recognized as like a medical issue.
Yeah, because that's what this reminded me of a lot. Because like I remember it was brought up a number of times of saying like, how do we know this isn't just like a mental condition? And then they're like, no, it has to be like some kind of parasite virus thing.
I thought that was them just trying to like cover up.
No, definitely. I mean, of course it is. But I'm just saying, like, it reminded me a lot of like real life, how no one was like, everyone was in denial of like mental conditions.
Gotcha.
I just feel like really bad for them. The clones are like good people. They consider themselves like, I don't want to say human, but they consider themselves to have like consciousness and like they want to be like recognized not as like robots or clones but like as people, and I think that's really cool.
Yeah, I think the way a lot of fans probably interpreted the clones, like just having watched the movies, would be just that they were like robots in their own way and that they were sort of like automatons. That makes, you know, some of the decisions they make in the future, you know, make more sense. But here we get a very interesting wrinkle to that idea.
This behavior is unsettling. First the malfunctioning clone, and now a renegade. Are you certain these soldiers will live up to your design in the end?
I am certain. The malfunction to the inhibitor chip is an aberration.
And how do you explain the renegade?
I'm afraid the Jedi have inspired creative thinking in some of the clones. That is the cause of this type of divergent behavior.
Will this interfere with Protocol 66?
No, I am certain of that.
Yeah, watching this, I had the thought, like, watching Revenge of the Sith is going to be really weird because all of the clones are just so, like, one-dimensional and don't really do anything. They're just robots in that movie.
It adds depth to the tragedy of the stormtroopers.
For sure.
Like, now that we know what the clones are and that they're, like, I don't know, you just, like, look at stormtroopers and you're like, I hate that. But then you look at the clones and it's like, wow, you guys are freaking awesome.
There's a lot of great moments in the show where a character will confront the clones and be like, hey, you are a robot. You know, you just follow orders. You just do what you're told. You are not like as sacred as a real human life. You're built to die, you know, basically. And that's been said to clones a number of times.
Aren't we all?
Oh, yes, we are. But the clones don't take that lying down, especially, you know, Rex. I remember the episode where he was by himself, the deserter episode in, I believe, season 2, where he's just like, I am not an automaton. I choose to believe the things that I'm taught, basically.
Is that the Cutler Quain episode?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, basically, I choose to believe the things that have been taught to me. Like, this is still my choice. I may be, like, built to be a warrior, but to continue to fight, like, is my choice. And stuff like that is, like, I think changed the way a lot of people saw the clones.
Yeah, and, like, how is that any different than a human being?
Because God created us.
Oh, that's right. God. God George.
Fives and Tup's relationship is what really makes the whole arc happen at the end of the day, because Fives 100% believes that Tup is not to blame for what he does, and Fives basically puts his whole life on the line to save Tup, or at least to provide the answers and, you know, bring justice to, you know, whatever force is hurting his friend. So
Fives is a good friend.
Yeah, he's a good dude. They're good friends, brothers.
Brothers.
Oh, and then they, like, torture him at, like, the hospital.
Yeah,
that was
it
weird.
Sucks to be him.
That was weird how they had that little, like, torture, like, hospital torture scene.
They said it was, like, necessary to get, like, the information as quick as possible.
It definitely seemed like the most faux science we've gotten in Star Wars so far is like, oh, if we, like, electrocute him harder, we'll get more data faster. That was literally what she said, like, right
torture
into the camera.
Is the key.
I felt like it was like them just putting in like another like movie trope in it.
Yeah,
like
it's all about Fives' reaction to their vindictiveness.
Why are they vindictive though?
Well, I mean, I feel like
because they're not really after revenge or anything.
I agree. I thought that was weird.
It feels like there's something pushing them along. Because the way that they react to this whole situation is suspicious.
Yeah, they're sus.
Yeah. I think, Jordan, you noted before, and I think everyone's probably on the same page, similarities between this arc and last week's arc. You know, there's a character that is being implicated in something that's not their fault, and they're going to end up taking the fall for it in some way. For me, I love not just crime stories, but, you know, detective stories. I love mysteries. So it's probably one of my favorite types of storytelling, and I really love both this arc and the last arc because I think they do a very good job of telling, you know.
It's just like really engaging, like those types of stories.
Yeah.
Like you're with the characters.
And when it's Star Wars, you know, like, okay, so how many big time like crime conspiracies are there like in New York City? Like how many of these movies can we see over and over again? But when it's like a mystery set in Star Wars, it's like, well, of course, like I want to know everything about Star Wars. So
yeah, I also liked how it like played into the larger narrative too.
It's very significant.
It is very significant.
Don't move!
Why are you doing this?
I know what you've done.
What is it that you think I have done?
How do you explain this?
That is a structural inhibitor chip, which is supposed to prevent you from being aggressive, like your source, Jango Fett. Jedi Master Sifo Dyas instructed us to implant them during your growth cycle.
The Jedi? The Jedi had this done to us?
It is not uncommon to have inhibitors placed in a clone.
I have analyzed this one, and apparently it has failed.
Up until this point, there has never been a problem.
Well, you have got a big problem now.
I remember like not liking that it was a chip when I was younger. I don't know why. But I think it makes
chip.
sense. Yeah, it's like an organic
chip made
chip.
from cells.
Yeah,
I
which is
crazy.
That's why you can't like detect it or anything.
Yeah, it's just a mass like in their head.
Is it even a chip at that point?
It's a
like
cell.
a tumor.
Yeah, it basically should.
Well, that like fucked me up because like, what are they made out of? Like, truly, what are they made out of? But like, are they made of cells or like, are they like robots? Like, what are they?
Well, it's like replicated DNA, right?
Yeah. I guess it's a clone. Okay, makes sense. They're a clone.
I guess this reminds me of like talking about Blade Runner because like they call them like replicants and androids in that, but just for all intents and purposes they bleed and they have like human anatomy. So are they robots or are they biological?
That's true.
I think
it's a sci-fi show. They can do whatever they want.
I think that's the short answer. Yes, thank you, Jordan. It is just a movie.
You're welcome.
Why is his name Fives?
His clone trooper number is
5555.
So that's what he named himself.
I had to recount it in my head.
The name's Fives.
Well, glad we got that taken care of.
No, I thought that was probably like my favorite scene in the whole arc.
Really?
Wait, what scene?
When he was talking to AZ.
When he was talking to AZ.
His number is CT5385.
Wrong. He has a name. No clone uses that number. Not anymore.
But you are a number. CT5555.
No. I am Fives. Call me Fives.
But 5 is a number.
No, not 5. Fives.
Oh. The difference is minimal.
Not to me. And not to any clone.
That was a super well, cleverly written scene humanizing the clones.
Yeah, I really like that scene.
And then it's like also they're like introducing it to the droids, and that's something you see throughout Star Wars. Right. Is like
the droids
are slowly gaining like.
They never rename themselves.
The droids are the audience.
I mean, most of the time.
They're like they're kind of comparable, I guess. Like where he's trying to convince him to go against orders, because it's literally what the clones are doing.
Yeah, it reminds me of the scene again, like I mentioned before, where Rex is like.
Come on, Rex, admit it. You've thought about what your life could look like if you were to also leave the army. Choose the life you want. What if I am choosing the life I want? What if I'm staying in the army because it's meaningful to me? And how is it meaningful? Because I'm part of the most pivotal moment in the history of the Republic. If we fail, then our children and their children could be forced to live under an evil I can't well imagine. If you were to have children, of course, but that would be against the rules, wouldn't it? Isn't that what somebody programmed you to believe, Captain? No, Cut. It's simply what I believe. It doesn't matter if it's my children or other people's children. Does that meet with your approval? Perfectly. To each his own. That's what I always say.
What does that mean, Daddy?
It means you can do anything with your life that you want to.
And he tells basically the same thing to the droid, like, listen, you have these two directives that are conflicting with each other. You should do the one that you feel is right, not the one that, like, the most recent order that's been given to you.
He, like, used the Force there.
He did. It was like a Jedi mind trick move.
Yeah, it was like a Jedi mind trick.
Too much time with Anakin and all these unethical pressuring of...
Yeah, I love AZ. I don't like droids, but I really liked him.
He was one of the top droid characters on the show.
He was and he got shit done.
Yeah.
He did.
You saw that hole he cut through the window?
Yeah.
I was like, damn. That is circular.
Yeah. That window, man.
I like he's like Fives is drowning and the droid just like becomes like an airspeeder.
Yes, that was so sick.
I love that.
Yeah,
but he was
cute.
like mean to him.
Yeah.
He was like, "Oh, shut up, bitch! Like, let me push you back down into the water. Let's go." Even though you're saving me.
Isn't there the scene? Yeah, everyone's mean to the droids. I know. It's my least favorite thing ever.
Me too.
You know what? All droids deserve to be mean to, except for AZ.
Wow. Classic evil thing to say.
Jordan hates all the droids. There's not a droid he's liked since just now.
They're just boring, except for this guy.
No, they're not. They're interesting.
You're right. I am just stupid.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm stupid and smart at the same time.
I think you're definitely right. He does stand out from among the other droids. Like, he does remind me a lot of Toto. Yates was bringing this up during the arc, just because he was also his own character. I like that he was like based on Kamino. Like, I like that he had like a purpose inside of the facility. I thought that was pretty interesting.
Science bot.
They're also just like they're sweeties.
Yeah.
They're all sweeties.
He was courageous, and he was genuinely, like, there were points where he was, like just really passionately advocating to, like, get to the bottom of this mystery.
Yeah.
Like, it was the most important thing to him. Like, it was just as important to him as it was to Fives, you know?
I like that one scene where he was like, hey, we're both getting our memories wiped. Like, we can still be friends if we remember each other. I was like, oh, dude.
Yeah, that was
cute.
cute.
That's so sad, but so sweet.
At the same time, though, like...
He was so sweet.
Fives was, like, surrounded by troopers, and, like, you would think that, like, when that exchange of information was going down, that at least there would be, like, some kind of, like, conflict between all of them. Like, some of them would side with Fives, and some of them would be against him in order to follow orders, but... Like, that's, like, the kind of scene I was expecting, but instead they're just automatically all against him.
It's kind of like the same with the Ahsoka arc, too, where, like, the Coruscant guards are, like, totally super indoctrinated and will just completely follow the orders because, you know, Coruscant is becoming the Empire and you know, it's becoming more and more of an extreme-like environment. I feel like it's probably the same way with the Kamino clone troopers is, like, they, like, live and breathe, like... We are the Kamino clone troopers, and we do whatever we're told. Like,
yeah,
you know.
all this
escalating.
All the information here is classified. We can't let anything go out.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
Top secret.
Exactly. Like this is this is literally, you know, we've been given orders that this is like the top priority of like anything that could possibly going on right now.
I follow you with that.
Yeah.
So that lady, that like Ahsoka looking lady, what's her name?
Shakti.
Cool name.
It is a cool name, yeah.
It is a cool name, yeah.
Dude. Don't you think she should have like kind of start to catch on?
There are multiple eyebrows raised from her.
Yeah.
That's as far as it goes, but you know, you could definitely get the sense that she is... I think she's trying to do her best in like a difficult situation, but to be quite frank, I mean, Shakti is a great design. She inspired the Ahsoka character. And I'm sure like in the old EU, she probably has many amazing yarns of adventure. But I really hated her character when she showed up in the previous arc because she is 100%. She's like, we get a little bit more personality in her in this, but she was like in the previous arc, she was like 100% stoic. There's a scene where the Prime Minister of Kamino says like, you know, those clones are property and like we should sell the defective clones to like mercenaries and stuff. And while she says that's a bad idea, she also calls them property, and like she does like a bunch of super like
she
sketchy
said that
shit.
In this one too. She said, "Actually, you're property of the Republic."
Yeah, she has no problem like saying things like that, and like also just being generally like severely emotionally attached to.
She seems like very status quo.
Definitely, and that's why she was like the most stoic, and like I think Luminar is an example of like a traditional Jedi character that follows the rules that is a lot more likable. And Shakti, when she showed up, I was like, I'm over this right now.
Well, I mean, it's like you were saying earlier about the Coruscant guards. Like it's the environment around her that's reinforcing her mindset. Like she's constantly
true.
surrounded by Kaminoans who think this way.
That's fair, yeah.
But that's also why I feel like she's like going along with it, you know?
Yeah,
And,
me too.
I mean, I did see her being like towards the end, like raising little eyebrows, but
She also basically, like, she was, like, removing Fives and protecting Fives from whatever the conspiracy was, but she was literally superseded by the president that said, no, she's coming here. Or Fives is coming here to, like, my office, and then there was that whole thing.
I loved that, yeah.
Yeah, so she was, like, actually, like, listen, I'm going to save you. We're going to go over there. We're going to figure out whatever this issue is. I'm interested to hear your story.
She was probably sensing something.
Yeah.
they keep getting like canaries in the coal mine.
Yeah,
you know?
definitely.
And it's like everyone's like suspicious, but like because they're Jedi, like no one acts. They're just like, like let me wait and see how it plays out. Like I don't want to be too hasty or anything.
Yeah, definitely. That's
So
definitely,
they
I think, an
don't
important
act.
component in the whole conspiracy here.
Sir, they're covering something up. I know it. If it's not them, then it's a separatist plot. They use this chip against us to make us more violent than less. That's why Tup killed General Tiplar.
A separatist plot from before the war even started? That seems unlikely, don't you agree, Master Shakti?
It does, Chancellor.
Yo, fuck Palpatine. I hate him in this scene so much. It's just like, we know how fake he is. Like, obviously the characters in the show don't know how fake he is. But, like, when he, like, asks everyone to leave, and then he's like, oh, no, he attacked me. You must be right. It's the chip.
Dude,
I busted out laughing.
Well, and like that like fucked up the clone's brain. Like after that, he was like, "Oh my god, this goes all the way to the top. Like I can't handle it."
He could not handle it.
Does
He went
not
psycho.
compute.
I mean, it's literally crazy.
It didn't look good on his part either because it looked like he was like psycho and not making
Yeah,
any
it
sense.
did, and I felt so bad for him.
It was just too much to grab.
So some Cthulhu shit. Can we just talk about the bar for a second and the cab driver? Because those were some of my favorite details about the whole arc.
Yes, rap is canon.
Rap is canon, and your mom's a droid.
Live. Yeah, the bar. I love the the clone bar, eh? Like I was like, oh, that's a really cool concept.
Yeah, like a bar for clones. That's awesome.
I loved the way it looked. I
Was it
loved
Club
the hip
67?
hop music. I loved.
It was also hilarious seeing Fives just like steal somebody's motorcycle.
Their speeder?
Yeah, their speeder. Then he just drives to the underworld. It's like, I guess I'm an outlaw now. And then he goes to some warehouse.
So yeah, a very, very clear similarity to the Ahsoka. Like, I guess I'm an outlaw now.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Time to find the warehouse. Like,
To live out of a warehouse.
Then he like traps them in some like orb. He
Trap
traps
trap
them in
house?
some like light orb, and while he's like freaking out.
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
like, what are you doing?
so that final scene, I mean, I really loved how that played out.
I was framed because I know the truth. The truth about a plot. A massive deception. By who? Well, there's a sinister plot in the works against the Jedi. I have proof of it. I can prove that everything that I know is true beyond a shadow of a doubt. Show me the evidence. The evidence is in here. It's in here. It's in all of us. Every clone. What is it? Organic chips built into our genetic code to make us do whatever someone wants. Even kill the Jedi.
Yeah, and now I'm wondering like what's gonna happen to them now. Like, is word gonna spread? You know, like among the clones?
Yeah, because
Or-
Anakin knows this.
Yeah, and like you'd think that like they'd hear through the grapevine. So what's gonna become of them now? Like, is them knowing going to mess up or like change the like course of events?
It probably won't change a lot of how Anakin feels, but it might change, how Rex feels.
Yeah, for sure.
No, yeah, I definitely agree because I want to see that too. Like, the idea of like rogue clone troopers is so cool. What do you think?
It's definitely like a very valid like opinion or question that the show itself kind of asks. Like, just by making the clones so good and loyal and outstanding people, by doing that, like that kind of like automatically raises the question, like, where are these people during the events of the original trilogy? Jordan, what was your reaction? I know everything that went down in the Ahsoka arc like really had an impact. What was like Fives' death scene like for you?
It was actually really, really impactful.
we've been watching it in order, so we're kind of growing with him, even though he's not like prevalent in every single arc. But I still felt like some sort of reverence for the character, because we already know what's happening. We have the God's Eye as like the audience, so we know he's like in the right, and everyone else is blind and they can't see it. And obviously, we don't want Revenge of the Sith and everything else.
Yeah, we want him, and even with all that, like there's a chance that he gets away, and in a world where like so many bad things happen to bad people, and like have been happening a lot recently, like you really want Fives to get away.
And also, it was just tough seeing like another clone having to execute one of their own, because they're constantly calling each other brother and stuff.
Yeah,
and
that's really rough.
Like the execution scene in the Umbara arc, when they didn't go through with it, we were so happy, but they actually went through with this. Even though the orders were from the Republic, so it's the good people, so they're doing right, I'm doing air quotes. But yeah, it was just so tragic. It like when Rex was like, "Fives, no, like get up," and then like when Anakin was like, "Get the shield out," I felt like he said that so Rex could have that moment with Fives, more so rather than Anakin wanting to be free.
Rex, Fives, it's bigger than any of us, than anything I could have imagined. I never meant to. I only wanted to do my duty. Brother, Fives, stay with me, Fives. Fives! The mission, the nightmares, they're finally over.
I mean, I thought it was really powerful just how really broken this whole ordeal had made Fives. I mean, you just got the impression that, this whole arc basically challenges the idea that I had mentioned earlier that had come from Rex, which is that we choose to follow the orders the way we do. And, if the biological chip inside of Fives' brain compels him to behave a certain way, then that autonomy is then taken from them. And like that lie that they've taught themselves, is completely upends their whole, sense of self, sense of identity. And that's why we see Fives in that moment, really struggling to like have a grip on reality and have a grip on himself. So guys, any closing thoughts? I definitely really enjoyed this arc. Tough act to follow, I think, last week's arc, but I liked how sort of different it was, but also dealt with very similar themes, and the despair of everything. Like this whole latter section of the Clone Wars, it's like Star Wars: The Collateral Damage Special. It's like just like everyone's just fucking heads are rolling, and just like the poor people that are caught up in these schemes that have been set since all the way back in the Phantom Menace and even beforehand. People are just being killed off left and right, and that's pretty intense.
We're getting into that Depression era, and it's very reflective of Revenge of the Sith. And it's getting me really excited for Revenge of the Sith. And I know I've been saying that since like the beginning of this podcast.
Yeah, I guess I do like this arc. The parallels to the Ahsoka arc are very prominent, but at the same time, it manages to like stay true to its own self. And I think that's like the best thing about it is that even though it's like very similar to the Ahsoka arc, I was never like thinking about it when I was watching it. I was just into the character of Fives and AZ and like rooting for them the whole time. Yeah, I liked it a lot.
I really liked this arc. I thought it was interesting, and it was well paced, and it contributed to the story.
Next week, you'll need to watch Season 6, Episode 5, An Old Friend, Episode 6, The Rise of Clovis, and Episode 7, Crisis of the Heart.
At the Heart.
Yeah, my name's Jessica.
My name's Yates.
My name's Keats.
My name is Jordan.
And my name is Fives.
What am I?